Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Brigadier General Paul Fredenberg, U.S. Army retired, Executive Vice President, National Security and Defense, AFCEA International.
All right, good morning, everybody. We doing all right? All right, we've had a great 2 days, and day 3 is going to be no different. We're closing out day 3 very, very strong here all day. So please enjoy it, take advantage of it, and continue to talk about those ideas and solutions to meet the Army's challenges and prepare the Army for the next fight. So I also hope you had a chance this morning to attend a session with Joe Welch from Army Futures Command. He talked about what Army Futures Command is doing to enable the SecDef priorities, specifically dominating in the electromagnetic spectrum and establishing AI-driven C2 by 2027. All right, those dates are coming up quick. And I'll tell you, if you haven't been sleeping for the last 2 days, there's a lot of transformation going on in our U.S. Army, and it is amazing and great to see. So we thank all the leaders here. We thank all the industry partners that are partnering on that, and we thank all the folks that are making those changes. He also talked about reorganization in order to support the integration of kinetic, to better support the integration of kinetic, non-kinetic, and autonomous systems. These are critical to be prepared for the next fight. So he talked about changing the Army requirements processes. And this gives the Army the ability, and these were congressional mandates, but it gives the Army the ability to move much more rapidly from the lab to prototyping to production, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to increase that speed as we are integrating these capabilities into the force. So anyway, we started off strong. We're going to continue now with an amazing fireside chat, and it is my pleasure to welcome back to the stage the founder of 10X National Security, John Eubank.
On behalf of AFCEA International, 10X National Security is pleased to introduce the TechNet Augusta Fireside Chat. I want to share a founder story today. 12 years ago, I was blessed to work a DISA project, this little teeny tiny project called the Rapid Deployment Kit that my boss at the time told me was going to die. It wasn't worth investing in. That ended up being the predecessor to Gabriel Nimbus and what's now known as the Big Data Platform. Our speaker today was a key enabler of facilitating the build out of that platform across not just the Army, but the entire Department of Defense. I have certain individuals that motivated and coached me to build a large defense contractor without even knowing it. Today's speaker was one of those inspirations that led to the creation of 10X National Security. As a modern defense technology firm, I'm excited to announce we're graduating from small business status after only 16 months of being in business. Today, we're excited to announce one of 10X National Security's new prime contracts, the Intelligence Community Data Consortium, the consolidation of OSINT purchasing across the entire intelligence community. As Team 10X, we are building the future of data management for the entire intelligence community. And now for the main event. I'm excited to introduce our speaker for today, Lieutenant General Paul Stanton, Director, Defense Information Systems Agency, Commander, Department of Defense Cyber Defense Command. Today's chat is moderated by Colonel Timothy Sikora, Commanding Officer of the Cyber Protection Brigade. Thank you all.
Sir. All right, sir.
I was just going to take my time getting up here. I was listening to the tunes pretty good. I had to get dressed up, although my suit does not look as good as John's does. That is a stellar suit, John. It's good to see you again, my friend. Sorry, Tim, I interrupted you.
No, all good, sir. As well, enjoying the tunes, enjoying the environment here, the energy here at TechNet. It's awesome, and I think I speak for a lot of the folks that I've seen you already interacting with, and then a lot of folks I've talked to. Welcome back to Augusta and Fort Gordon.
Hey, awesome. Nothing like the heat and humidity of Augusta in August to welcome you back. I tell you, I'm a lot more relaxed at TechNet Augusta this year than I have been in the past. Courtesy of our friends from AFCEA, I know the Cyber Center of Excellence in Fort Gordon put a lot of time and energy into organizing this fantastic event, and I didn't have to do any of that, so it's awesome. It's good to be here.
No, great, sir. So I want to jump right into it because I don't want to take too many minutes of our time with moving around, talking introduction-wise, because I know you and I don't get to interface like this very often unless it's over a network outage or some kind of emergency.
Never happens.
It never happens. So we don't get to interface enough. So jumping right into it, with DC-DC and the sub-unified command, could you just give us a quick intro and what that means?
Yeah, pretty significant development in our warfighting capabilities and the operational domain of cyberspace for the Joint Force Headquarters Department of Defense Information Network to transition into a sub-unified headquarters, the Department of Defense Cyber Defense Command. First off, it has a lot less syllables when you say your name in the title. But importantly, it gives us the ability to focus on warfighting at the operational level of war. If you think about the way that we have been organized, we have strategic guidance and direction, and we have tactical execution. DC-DC being elevated to sub-unified gives us the opportunity to step in at the operational level of war and drive a campaign against our adversaries, so that we're not looking at individual events in isolation, but rather looking at the big picture. We're not deploying combat power in an individual incident without recognizing how it is correlated to another incident that another force is acting upon. That's transformational. If you think about the intelligence capabilities that we are posturing to deliver, yes, we have fantastic intelligence, but how do I make that intelligence relevant to the operational context within which we have to execute the mission? That's central to our future. How do I plan effectively so that I'm not reactionary? I'm delivering lethality and imposing costs on the adversaries because I'm thinking about how I'm organizing and posturing for a campaign. That's what being elevated to sub-unified means as DC-DC. Plus, it's just an infinitely cooler name.
Absolutely, sir. And within that portfolio, those two portfolios of DC-DC and DISA, what are some of the resources within those that create opportunities for the way forward?
Yeah, it's super powerful to be dual-hatted. So as the director of DISA and the commander of DC-DC, I don't remember the last time I held a meeting or an ops and intel update where I didn't have both organizations strongly represented in the room. First off, from a defensive perspective, you can't defend what you can't see and don't understand. Period. So DISA, who is responsible for operating, maintaining, securing, and extending and transforming and modernizing the DoDN, has to do that in a way that informs how we execute our defense. It does us no good to dig your fighting position and put your anti-tank weapon systems and then change to where the engagement area is. So if DISA is making modifications to the operating environment, DC-DC has to absolutely be informed so that we adjust the manner in which we're executing the defense. But then flip that. And so we have a responsibility as DISA to continuously modernize. The network will forever change. Well, we should do that in a way that is informed by its defensibility. It does us no good to extend the operating environment and then not have it available to us at time of need because we didn't secure it properly. So putting those two together is a key aspect of my responsibilities being dual-hatted as both the director and the commander.
No, thanks for that, sir. And as you talk about those networks, one of the really at the front edge of warfighting platforms, and we look at the most meaningful, important networks. Could you talk a little bit about those mission partner environments? And
anybody want to hear about mission partner environments?
How those link in?
All right. So, hey, we fight our wars as the United States of America Department of Defense through our combatant commands. Our combatant commands will not engage in a conflict unilaterally by ourselves as the United States of America. We will fight with our partners. I will argue that anybody in this room that thinks that they know who is going to be in the coalition in the next engagement ahead of time will be absolutely wrong. You might have a subset correct. Like, we are going to fight alongside some partners that we know will be part of the coalition. Yes. But I will argue that you don't know who is, in its entirety, who will make up the coalition ahead of time. So the operating environment that we present must be structured, organized, designed, and capable of incorporating partners from all over the place at the time of need. So we must deliver an environment that is relevant for our combatant commanders. Telling combatant commanders about a 10-year modernization vision is unsatisfying. Combatant commanders need a capability today, and it needs to be improved tomorrow, and it better be exponentially improved the day after that. So making sure that we are aligned with our combatant commanders' requirements so that we deliver them functionally relevant capability is central to what we are tasked with as a combat support agency, the Defense Information Systems Agency. So we have to be in tune with what the combatant commander needs. But I'll tell you what else is unsatisfying. Delivering a network circuit over here, a cloud data center over here, and an enterprise support software component yet in a third location. When I talk about delivering functionally relevant capability, it's intended to put the pieces and parts together in a way that actually solves a problem for the combatant commander. Can I immediately solve all problems? No. But I better solve one that is functionally relevant, that is aligned to the combatant commander's requirements. So I better put the circuit, the data center, and the software in the same spot, doing something functionally relevant that the combatant commander asked for. Okay, so that's foundational to how we're organizing ourselves within DISA as a combat support agency to drive the meaningful delivery of capability. Now, combine that with the fact that I said that we don't yet know who's in the coalition, and that design has to be able to incorporate a new partner at the time of need, when we don't know who that is ahead of time. What's awesome is that technology has evolved a great deal. And the technological tools to design, build, implement, operate, and fight from the environment that I'm describing, just have to put them together in a meaningful way. And so that's exactly what we're doing in support of our combatant commands as a combat support agency.
Sir, I think that leads to, you just talked about the importance of those industry partners, but also the complexity of that network. I think we have two branches here we can go down.
Yeah.
But first, and I apologize, I didn't bring the whiteboard,
Yeah.
and I've heard about your whiteboard sessions.
Well, I had a whole deck of note cards of what I was planning on talking about. I just threw them out, and I figured that I would just go wherever Tim drives this thing. So no whiteboard, but we'll go wherever you're.
Next year I'll put in a request for a whiteboard
right.
and get better there, sir. But with that incredibly complex network, bringing in new partners, we all have the buzzword zero trust.
Yeah.
I could probably line up 10 PhDs of computer science in a room and get a different variant of that. but what does that mean when talking zero trust overlapped with those?
Okay, it didn't get us long to get to the first buzzword on your bingo card, so go ahead and put a chip next to zero trust. I've built a career off of buzzword bingo, whether it was big data into AI, into, well, zero trust is definitely one of them. But when I talk about zero trust, my elevator pitch is that I have to understand who my users are, what devices they have. I have to make an informed decision about the risk associated with that user on that device in order to access meaningful resources. Basics, like Zero Trust 101, right? But when we first piloted Zero Trust years ago, the intent was for it to support the multi-partner environment. If you think about being able to make an informed risk decision, user with device, with access to resources, if implemented properly, then if you are from nation X or nation Y on whatever type device you have, I should be able to make an informed decision about the resources to which you have access. And when I talk about resources, I'm not talking about PowerPoint exchanges. I'm talking about decision support capability in a warfight. Can I see the elements of a common operating picture? Can I see the electromagnetic spectrum in a meaningful way where I'm sharing that data with partners? But then using the fact that we have applied appropriate data tagging mechanisms to then control access and present a picture for which you are authorized to see based off of who you are and what device you're on. That is central to the design. That is absolutely the direction that we're headed. A key aspect of our design as we drive towards a implementation of a multi-partner environment. The MPE is incredibly complex, and it includes a infantry rifleman with a software-defined radio on some godforsaken location, calling for fire from a foreign national naval destroyer. Yes, that is part of the Venn diagram inclusionary concept of MPE. That's a really hard problem that wicked smart people are working on. And there are lots of things, and the Army is leading out with Project Convergence Design and driving some of these really tough problems that solve a warfighting tactical edge problem. But can we leap ahead in support of our combatant commands? If you think about the fact that a combatant command is going to have resilient, redundant pathways into a cloud infrastructure, can you use the cloud then to help you leap ahead? Can you put decision support capabilities, the proverbial common operating picture, into a cloud environment, leveraging the zero trust concepts that I discussed a minute ago, combined with our enterprise ICAM capability, and achieve a functionally relevant capability for a combatant command in relatively short order? Yep. Yes, you can. In fact, we did it in support of Indo-PACOM about a month ago. We walked onto the JOC floor in Indo-PACOM and presented a common operating picture, the exact same common operating picture that they already had up on their JOC floor. We presented it to them running in a hybrid cloud forward edge node leveraging eICAM with zero trust capabilities enabled. It's proof of concept, it's pilot, but it's pretty important when you do it live on the combatant commander's JOC floor. And then, an ounce risky, and my engineering team has yet to forgive me for it, I walked up with my SIPR token, plugged it in, and said, I'm trying to do this live, let's see if it works, and access the environment based off of our identity control and access management policies that we built into the design. Here's my point. We can achieve functionally relevant capability to support the combatant commands relatively quickly. That's where we're headed with MPE. But it takes everybody that's in this room in order to help us get there. Because the technology is not technology that we're coding up inside of the basement at the DISA headquarters. Yeah, we're helping to integrate it and put it together in a meaningful way, but it is our industry partners that are helping us build the composable elements of the design that make for meaningful, again, functionally relevant capability for the combatant command.
Sir, you mentioned it sounds like one of the biggest, really the blocking and tackling of that comes to that identity and access management real time for users that are outside of this community.
Yeah.
Or the onboarding and the in-processing of new folks and taking people off of those systems. How do we get to that cultural change across our forces and across our militaries to really emphasize that and then put the right horsepower and the right manpower against getting that done?
Yeah, so let me go back to my roots just a bit, and this is going to take a long circuitous path to answering your question, Tim, by the way. You know, 3 years in working combat development for the Army, or with the Army, recognizing that the Army has been driving and pushing the term continuous transformation still resonates. I modified it a little bit as I got up to become the director of DISA and commander of DCDC. One of our priorities is continuous modernization. But continuous modernization is part of who we are. So we must design our capabilities accordingly. One of our design criteria is extensibility. It can't be brittle and isolated. It has to be designed knowing that you are going to change it, knowing that it is going to be a composable element in a broader system of systems, and noting that I'm going to have to add to it. So when we look at our ICAM-based solution that we have designed at DISA, it is, if you are a U.S. Army soldier, you have a number of different attributes that are contributing to your identity that get tied back to data of record in systems of record. Pretty confident that we know who you are, and therefore, if you go to that zero trust model of knowing who you are and then knowing what device you're on, I can make an informed decision. So if you present your credential as an Army soldier, I have very high confidence in the source of identity. But go back to the dynamicism of the operating environment that I described that our combatant commands are going to be faced with. They don't know who is in the coalition ahead of time. They don't know what data set they need ahead of time. So what happens when you're in Island Nation X and you need access to the port and you need sustainment-based logistics data from the port? What's the source of identity for the user that is a host nation X individual? What source of identity does she have? Well, our design for ICAM has to account for the fact that that individual might roll up with a self-signed Rudy Poo X509 cert, but I still have to give them access into the environment. Doesn't mean I'm going to give them access to the most sensitive data that sits inside of that environment. Think back to the risk control decisions that are inherent to zero trust. But when zero trust is implemented properly and the ICAM solution allows you to enter into the environment with your source of identity, because I don't know who you were ahead of time, I can't impose our strict identity criteria for a US citizen onto a host nation. They don't have the infrastructure to support that. But now I can make a risk-informed decision about what access and what resources they should have access to. Circling all the way back to a design principle of being extensibility. That's got to be inherent to how we build this, because I don't know who's going to roll in. I have to consider the fact that technology is going to evolve in a world of continuous modernization. So I build and design it accordingly. And the enterprise ICAM solution from DISA is a great example of how and why we're executing it that way.
Yes, sir. And that's one aspect of leveraging industry. What other areas of technology and within your portfolio have you seen that you really think?
Oh, I have no dependency on industry. Thank you for the chuckles. I was trying there, doing my best. The DODIN is an amalgamation of industry products. I mean, legitimately. The folks that we have writing code inside DISA headquarters are writing some code to help do some analytics and put pieces and components together. The code writers are sitting in the room with the solutions that they have developed that then compose the DODIN. Doing it in a meaningful way, doing design to be extensible from your own solution, recognizing that your solution will be one of the Lego blocks that get composed into the Lego creation. Designing it that way from an industry perspective is critically important. Recognizing that we are going to take whatever it is that you're presenting to us and tie it together into a system of systems to then provide functionally relevant capability to a formation at echelon. That's part of our culture of tying with industry, the industry partners that are sitting in this room and that are listening or watching online, because you're the ones that are dedicated to supporting the Department of Defense. But ensuring that your own design criteria account for how we plan to use it, again, putting your solution together with others in a system of systems to support a formation at echelon with functionally relevant capability, even those phrases build on each other like Lego blocks. That's part of the collaboration.
Sir. Switching topics a little bit, we did bring a portion of the CPB fan club here, as well as you being one of the earlier commanders. But when we talk about, all the way down, you got to see from the Cyber Protection Brigade at that tactical level up to your seat now, from the tactical level of network view and threat hunting to where you are now. What are some of the things you wish you knew at the tactical level that you now have more insight on?
How much time do you have, Tim?
I think
And how many notebooks and stubby pencils do you have? So I'm going to zoom out just for a second and leverage the fact that I'm sitting on stage to just offer a quick thought on continuous self-development. You cannot sit back. Doesn't matter who you are in the room, but if you are a service member, an Army soldier, you can't sit back in this warfighting domain and think that you know enough to be good at your job. It will change tomorrow. So what are you doing individually to study, to prepare, to organize, to push yourself, to think, so that you can be subjected to a problem and think your way through the solution? Not look up what the answer is, but actually perform the thought and analysis to drive a solution. Tim and I were talking when we were preparing for the discussion. He said, well, what are you reading? And I said, I got 2 books that are currently sitting open on my bookshelf in my office. One is Kevin Bierman's Reliable Distributed Systems. And the other is the CLRS Algorithms book. Anybody a computer science major? Get flashbacks? Anyone know the Green Algorithms book? Why those 2? Well, because what we're trying to design for the multi-partner environment is a distributed system. And if you don't have the foundation, the technical foundation to understand the theoretical limitations of a distributed system, then you're not going to design it right. And when we think about the future fight, we think about a fight in moving data from one spot to the next in the Indo-Pacific theater. You better have operational efficiency as one of your criteria, because you don't have the pipes and you don't have the time. So if you don't understand the difference between an O of n squared algorithm and an O of n algorithm, and understand the difference in its efficiency and the time it's going to take to run it, then you're not going to design the system properly. So you have to have those technical underpinnings to help inform the decisions that you're making, and it doesn't matter if those are at the tactical, operational, or strategic level. But don't ever sit back and say, I know enough, because you don't. You got to keep pressing and watch technology that changes on a daily basis. The design criteria that you drew up on the whiteboard 6 months ago is irrelevant today. Maybe not irrelevant, but it's been modified since then. So you have to be able to account for that. And then you have to be able to think your way through the challenges and how it is evolving. Don't think you know everything. Not possible. This domain is way too complex. So when you walk into the room to help lead a technical conversation, recognize and understand where your own limitations are, and recognize and understand and solicit the input from the technical experts that share the room. Put the right technical expert in the room. I'll tell you that rank doesn't matter with technical expertise. Rank matters for a lot of things, yes. But the technical solution and the insight can come from whoever has the technical depth in order to provide the insight. So make sure you're putting those people in the room and make sure you're listening to them. Something that I accuse myself of routinely. Don't talk first. Ask, and then listen. Let the good ideas flow, because the perspective of people in the room will be different than yours. They'll understand the problem from a different angle. They'll describe it in a unique way. And then collaboratively, you put together a meaningful solution. So I think that, I mean, the only thing about a decade or so worth of experience is just that. It's experience and understanding how to put the pieces and parts together in ways that are useful and operationally relevant. But the concepts, the principles, I pride myself on a handful of opportunities I had way back in the day at the Cyber Protection Brigade of just bringing really smart people into the room, throwing up the whiteboard, and letting the technical experts come back with what the solution needs to be.
Yes, sir. And on those technical experts, I think it's a challenge at some point for all of us across the force in any leadership position. What's some of the techniques you've used to get the most credible technical experts, not just in the room, but then getting them to speak up? Because some of our best and brightest folks will let the louder person in the room talk. How do you set the conditions for that?
Yeah, so this is where you take a leadership page out of the book from your mentors, several of which of mine are sitting in the room. And those that are in the room offered me the mic at times. So recognizing that it is the E5, it is the warrant officer, it is the captain, be engaging to figure out who it is that has the technical depth that is solving the problem. And build your culture inside of your organization that allows that individual to have a voice. And once the individual realizes that just because they're sitting in the conference room with flag officers and SESs, that they have the opportunity to say something when it's relevant, that's part of driving that culture.
Yes, sir. I think we have a few minutes left. Your favorite technology, emerging technology over the past few years?
Oof.
What gets you most excited?
That's interesting, right?
That wasn't in the prep set.
Yeah. So
sir.
As I stammer and stutter on the stage, I think I am a bit of a traditionalist as a computer scientist. I still favor the C programming language to Python. You don't get to cheat in your memory management, right? The garbage collector isn't running behind the scenes. And if you've got a memory leak, it's going to manifest. And when's it going to manifest? It's going to manifest on iteration 127,000 of the loop that's running, right? So I think I'm an ounce of a traditionalist. I like to look at technology writ large through the lens of how to optimize. I think that is part of the problem that we have as the Department of Defense, is it's not just the algorithmic approach, but ultimately we do have to paint it green and drop it out of an airplane. I don't think starting at that point is the right answer. I think determining analytically, algorithmically, how to solve the problem is important, but then optimize it so that it's going to run under extreme conditions. You know, one of my favorite examples dating back to the Cyber Protection Brigade was when we lost custody of one of our deployable kits. Because it was big and heavy, it went in the belly of the aircraft. And then when we got to wherever we were going, it went through customs. And we lost custody of the system and then basically couldn't use it anymore, right? But that mission requirement drove the optimization of the design, both hardware and software, so that it fit in the overhead compartment of the aircraft. I offer that as an example of thinking about these problems in a meaningful way. Again, I caution to say, don't immediately jump to fitting it in the overhead of the aircraft, because if we do that, we potentially constrain the space that actually solves the problem. So think about how to solve the problem and then work to optimize its employment under the most austere conditions when it's 32 degrees below zero and you've got your big gloves on and you can only point with the button like this, right? So I think that going back to the foundation, the fundamentals, understand sequence selection and iteration, understand the key components of our existing routing algorithms, like that's what I fall back to. That doesn't mean that the latest LLM isn't open on my desk right now. It is. And all those note cards that my team put together for me to come up here and talk were generated by an LLM. And they were actually really good talking points. I just didn't remember to carry them with me.
No, that's about all the time we have here today, sir. Any closing comments from you?
Hey, so I guess my closing comment is, as the commander of the DoD Cyber Defense Command, we're driving to campaign. We must impose costs on our adversaries, and we can do that in unique ways based on fighting at the operational level of war. From a DISA perspective, we are also campaigning. We are campaigning to provide functionally relevant capability at the time and place of need for our warfighting community. If we don't, the warfighting community is going to go off and try to solve the problem themselves. And if they do that, then we have combatant commands that can't communicate with each other. And that's an unsatisfying position to be in. So we've got to drive that functionally relevant capability.
That's how we.
That was more than subtle hint that the clock in front of us, they're like, hey, shut up. And my last point is it's awesome to be in Augusta. It's awesome to be with AFCEA at TechNet. While I only rolled in last night, I look forward to the many engagements and walking the halls and talking to you all this afternoon. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul Fredenberg back to the stage.
All right, thank you, General Stanton and Colonel Sikora, for being with us here today. Some of the discussion up here that you talked about was the elevation of the Cyber Defense Command enables you to have the campaign approach against our adversaries, which is absolutely critical. And of course, it gives you that new super cool name. So, you can't go wrong with that. You talked about the...
It used to be in your signature.
And the power, you talked about the power of the synergy between your two hats, and you were pretty articulate about how those things really work well together. I'm personally glad to see MPE back in the Joint Information Systems execution arm of our department. And we all appreciate DISA's focus on functionally relevant capability for the warfighter. That is absolutely critical to deliver on that. In lieu of a speaker gift, AFCEA is going to make a donation to the Signal and the Cyber Museum Society on your behalf. So thank you again for being here with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to return back here at 12:45 for our closing session. And believe me, we're going to finish off pretty strong here. We have Lieutenant General Jeff Ray and Mr. John Bastian is going to be here for a closing fireside chat. And they're going to talk about the Army Unified Network Plan 2.0, enabling data centricity for multi-domain operations. So we're looking forward to that. Now, you only have a few hours left, so take advantage of time to visit with our industry partners on the exhibit floor, and we have several sessions that are still available for you to attend. So look at your mobile app for all of those times and locations, and we'll see you back here very shortly. Thank you.